My family used me for years. My revenge was a free house for my brother. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. But then again, I was never really invited in, was I? I was walking up the stairs with a basket of folded laundry, towels for their guest bathroom, hand-pressed shirts for my nephew's upcoming school debate, when I heard my name. Not fondly, not with warmth. It was my sister-in-law's voice, sharp as the edge of her wine glass, slicing through my name like it was something to be embarrassed of. She's never going to move out, is she? I froze. Halfway up the staircase, one sock slipping from the top of the laundry pile and landing softly on the carpet like punctuation. My brother, didn't answer right away. That silence told me everything. And when he finally did speak, his voice was low and tired. She doesn't have anywhere to go, Jules. I had to clutch the rail to steady myself. Not because he was wrong, but because I had never heard it put that way. Doesn't have anywhere to go. As if I were a stray. As if my whole life, my job, my childhood bedroom, the hundreds of hours I'd spent helping them was nothing but a string of bad luck that led me here, to their guest room, to their mercy. Julia scoffed. It's been 3 years. She's not your responsibility, Noah. She's a grown woman. Grown woman. Yes, 33 and shrinking by the day under their roof. Holding my breath so I wouldn't be in the way. Filling the silence with kindness, with casseroles, with "can I help with that?" and "don't worry, I've got it." I thought if I just made myself useful enough, they'd remember who I was, what I'd given up. Instead, they whispered like I was the smell of something they couldn't quite place, but wanted to get rid of. You don't owe her forever, Julia continued. Your sister made her choices. There it was. The unspoken things said aloud. My choices. I walked back down the stairs like a ghost, barefoot and weightless. The laundry still in my arms, pressed to my chest like a shield. I didn't cry. Not then. I just stood in the kitchen and looked at the family photos Julia had printed in glossy squares on the fridge. Noah and Julia on their anniversary trip to Italy. Owen in his soccer uniform, muddy and beaming. Even the dog had a place on that fridge. I didn't. Not even the one of us as kids, me and Noah in matching raincoats, holding hands on the front steps of Grandma's house. That photo used to live in a frame by the coffee maker. It disappeared sometime last winter. I hadn't asked. I took a breath and set the laundry down on the table. Folded. Neat. As always. And I picked up my keys. Just running to the store, I called up the stairs. No answer. I walked out the front door of the house I cleaned, cooked in, tiptoed through, and I didn't go to the store. I drove. I drove all the way to a tiny town 2 hours north, where the sky opened wider and the air smelled like something older than disappointment. Where my grandmother's house stood, faded, but still upright, behind a leaning white fence and a gate that stuck when it rained. The house she left to me. The house everyone thought I'd forgotten. It still needed work. So much work. I stepped inside, and it smelled like dust and cedar and something familiar I couldn't name. I didn't cry until I saw the little hallway mirror. The one where Grandma used to fix her lipstick before church and say, "Milla, sweetheart, the truth always comes out in the end. The question is, will you be standing when it does?" I wiped my eyes, smiled at my reflection, cracked though it was. Then I made a plan. They thought I had nowhere to go. They were wrong. And the first step of my revenge was a housewarming gift. For someone who actually saw me. I didn't go back to Noah's house that night. Instead, I slept on the floor of my grandmother's old sewing room, curled up in a blanket that smelled faintly of lavender and thyme. The walls were still lined with her fabric bolts, her careful notes pinned like prayers along the corkboard. She used to call it her dreaming room. And that night, I dreamed wide awake. When I opened my eyes the next morning, the sun was slipping through the yellowed curtains and stripes, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel like a burden. I felt like a beginning. Of course, the house was a wreck. There was a crack in the kitchen ceiling, the pipes gurgled like they were angry to be disturbed, and one of the front porch steps gave way beneath my foot with a splintering groan that sent me stumbling into the bushes. But it was mine. All mine. I drove to the hardware store, still wearing the same jeans from the day before. Picked up paint samples, plaster, a new broom, and on impulse, a cheap bottle of sparkling cider. A toast, I murmured, placing it on the counter. To what? The cashier asked, barely looking up. To something no one gave me, I said softly. A fresh start. That night, sitting cross-legged on the floor with a bowl of instant noodles and a head full of plans, I started making lists. Not the kind I'd made for Julia, grocery lists, pickup schedules, dry cleaning runs. These were my lists. Walls to paint, floors to patch, plants to bring back from the brink. And on a separate piece of paper, I wrote one name, Reese. My brother. My other brother. The one everyone forgot existed because he never asked for anything. The one who, 3 years ago, quietly gave me the name of a lawyer when I didn't know how to leave my ex. The one who, when I didn't take it, sent me a check anyway for rent or gas or leaving whatever you need, sis. I never cashed it, but I remembered. And now I was going to give him something back. The house wasn't big, but the yard was wide and the bones were strong. With a little work, I could turn the upstairs into a private unit, bedroom, bathroom, separate entrance. I'd keep the downstairs for myself. He'd have the quiet he always wanted. No more roommates. No more second jobs. He didn't know yet, of course. And neither did Noah. But while they were having wine-soaked conversations about how long I'd stay under their roof, I was sanding window frames and teaching myself how to patch drywall from YouTube videos and old manuals in the attic. My hands ached, but it was the best kind of ache, the kind that reminded you you're building something. Reese texted me 2 weeks later, a casual check-in like he always did. You good? I sent a photo back. The porch. Fresh paint. Sunflowers in an old tin pitcher. A minute passed. Then, wait. Is that Grandma's? I smiled. Come visit. Bring coffee. When he pulled up that weekend, I saw the disbelief on his face before he even got out of the car. Milla, he said slowly, stepping through the gate like he was afraid the house might disappear. You actually came back. I never really left, I said. Just forgot I had somewhere to come back to. We sat on the porch that night, sipping bad coffee and talking like we used to. And when I told him I wanted him to live here, upstairs, rent-free, no strings, he went quiet. Why? He asked. Because I want to, I said. Because no one ever gave me anything without a list of conditions. And you were the only one who saw me falling and didn't ask what I'd done to trip. Reese didn't say thank you. He just looked at me with that steady gaze of his and nodded, like he already understood what I was really doing. Not just giving him a house, claiming my place in one. But as the porch light buzzed above us and the stars started to blink awake, I felt a pull in my chest. Not regret. Not fear. Just a warning. They'd come looking soon. Julia didn't like being the last to know anything. And Noah, well, he had a way of waiting until you were happy before he realized he missed you. I sipped my coffee. Let them come. This time I had walls. And a front door. And locks. And if they wanted in, they'd have to knock. They didn't knock. They never do they? It was a Wednesday when Julia showed up. Middle of the afternoon, hot enough that the paint I'd just finished drying on the upstairs window frame was still tacky under my fingers. I'd been listening to an old jazz record, one of Grandma's favorites, when her car crunched across the gravel, too fast, too loud, like she wanted the whole town to know she was arriving. I stood on the porch, wiping my hands on an old towel, and waited. Let her climb out of that spotless SUV with her designer sandals and her expression, like she'd just stepped in something. This is cute, she said, looking around like the house offended her. Rustic. I call it mine, I said, holding her gaze. I didn't invite her in. She smiled, that smile that never reached her eyes. We've been worried. No, you haven't. She blinked, surprised. Not at my words, but at my tone. I suppose she expected me to be flustered. Apologetic. Ready to explain myself like a child who'd run away from home. I crossed my arms. What do you want, Julia? She walked up the steps, uninvited, and leaned against the porch post like it belonged to her. I just thought we should talk. You know, before things get complicated. I tilted my head. Complicated how? She didn't answer right away. Just looked around, taking in the flower beds, the fresh paint, the humming porch fan. "Noah's hurt," she said finally. "He's confused." I almost laughed. Noah was confused? After 3 years of quietly taking from me, of nodding along while his wife whispered that I was a burden, he was confused. "He didn't know you were planning to leave," she added. "You didn't say goodbye." I looked at her, really looked, and I saw it then, not concern, not worry, fear, not the kind you feel when someone's gone, the kind you feel when you've lost control. "What exactly is it you're worried about?" I asked, stepping closer. Julia smoothed a hand over her silk blouse. "Look, I just think we all need to get on the same page before Reese gets ideas." There it was. The shift. The unexpected turn that made the hairs rise on the back of my neck. What does Reese have to do with this? She smiled again. Too sweet this time. You know how he is. Always acting like the quiet one, but he plays the long game. You move out, start fixing this place up, give him a place to stay rent-free. People are going to wonder what he's really after. I stared at her. You're trying to make it look like he's manipulating me? Well, it does look sudden. She glanced pointedly at the house. Like you're building something you can't actually manage. Not alone. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. Instead, I stepped forward, so close I could see the faint smudge of lipstick on her front tooth. You never worried about me being alone when I was folding your laundry and watching your son for free. You only started worrying when I stopped being useful. Julia's smile twitched. You're being paranoid. And you're being transparent. For a second, something flashed across her face. Not anger, calculation. Look, she said, softening her tone like she was offering grace. This house could be valuable. If we just all sat down, maybe figured out a way for everyone to benefit. You know Noah helped with the estate fees back when Grandma passed. My mouth went dry. He what? She shrugged, as if it were obvious. He paid the lawyer to push the paperwork through. We never told you because, well, you were going through so much at the time. That was 8 years ago. And I'd always wondered why Grandma's will, which she said she'd updated to include me as sole inheritor, had taken so long to come through. I thought the lawyer was just slow. I never thought to ask. You altered the estate, I said, numb. You held it back. It wasn't like that, Julia said quickly. We just paused it, to make sure you weren't making any rash decisions. I mean, you were with him back then. My ex. My worst mistake. They'd used it against me then. Told the lawyer I was unstable, not thinking clearly. That it would be better to wait. Better for them. I looked around the porch. The house. My hands. I had clawed every inch of this place back from the brink. And they'd tried to keep it from me. Get off my property, Julia. Her eyes narrowed. Milla. Now. She stepped back, startled, and for once, she didn't argue. Just turned on her heel, walked to her car, and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the porch glass. I watched her drive away, my hands trembling. Not with fear. With fury. The kind that burns slow and hot and makes you sharper than you've ever been. Because now I knew the truth, they had tried to erase me. Erase my name from the paperwork. Erase my presence from the fridge. Erase my future. But they failed. And now, I wasn't just rebuilding a house. I was rewriting the story. And this time, I had proof. The next week passed like a long-held breath. Too quiet. Too still. Reese moved in on Sunday. Just a few boxes, a toolbox, and a half smile like he was still waiting for the other shoe to drop. He didn't ask questions, not even when he found me elbow-deep in a pile of old legal documents, circling dates and scribbling notes on a yellow pad. He just carried in my groceries without being asked and fixed the front gate like it was the most natural thing in the world. Did you know? I asked him one night, out on the porch, both of us nursing mugs of chamomile like old folks in a storybook. About what? The will. The estate. That Noah and Julia sat on it after Grandma died. His jaw tightened, just a little. Suspected. Never saw the paperwork. You were with Sean back then. They said they were protecting you. That word again. Protecting. Funny how it always means the same thing when it comes from people who want something control. Reese looked over at me. Want me to go to them? No, I said. I want them to come to me. They did, just not how I expected. The letter came first, thick cream envelope, our family name embossed in tiny gold lettering like a wedding invitation. But there was no warmth inside, just threats, wrapped in polite phrases. Julia's handwriting, I could tell. Noah never had the stomach for confrontation. We're concerned, it began. It seems there may be some confusion about the ownership of the property located at 612 Maple Ridge. As Noah contributed financially to the resolution of your grandmother's estate, we believe it would be prudent to clarify certain legal standings before further changes are made to the property. It was signed, warmly, Julia Morgan Grace. Noah's name wasn't anywhere. Didn't even have the guts to write it himself, Reese said, standing behind me at the kitchen table, arms folded. Coward. I stared at the paper in my hands. Legal standings. Ownership. Prudence. They weren't trying to talk. They were preparing to take. She's threatening to challenge the deed, I murmured. You've got the original will, Reese reminded me. You've got Grandma's final letter, the dated updates, the note she wrote in her last Christmas card saying she hoped you'd finally come home to this house. You've got everything. They've got money, I said. Lawyers. Influence. And they've never once hesitated to weaponize it. We both went quiet, because we knew. This wasn't about a house anymore. It was about power. About who got to say I belonged. About who got to rewrite the story of my life while I was still living it. I spent the next 3 days in town, quietly gathering reinforcements. I went to the county records office and made copies of the will, the title, the probate dates. I pulled up emails from the old lawyer, ones Julia probably assumed I'd deleted. I even printed out the screenshot of a text Noah sent me years ago when I first moved in with them. Grandma would have wanted you to have the house. We all know that. Funny how quickly people forget their own words. I kept all of it in a folder labeled Restoration. Reese said it sounded like a church project. I said maybe it was. That Thursday, the phone rang. Not a text. Not a knock. Noah. His voice was cautious, quieter than I remembered. Like he didn't know how to speak to me anymore. Hey, Mill. Hey. Long pause. Too long. I got your message, he said. I hadn't sent one. She's upset, he added. Julia. I think things might have gotten a little exaggerated. Noah, I said, steady. Did you or did you not tell the estate attorney to delay the title transfer after Grandma died? He didn't answer. Just silence. Noah. I didn't want you to make a mistake, he said finally, his voice cracking like a frozen pond under pressure. You were a mess, Milla. After Sean. After everything. You were sleeping on our couch and crying in the bathroom. I didn't know what else to do. You didn't know what else to do, I repeated, bitter. So you let your wife erase my name from my own inheritance. I didn't erase anything. You stood by while she tried to. Another silence. I'm sorry, he said, but the words sounded like a pebble dropped into a canyon. Small. Pointless. I didn't reply. I want to come see the house, he said next. My heart clenched, but not with fear, with anger. No. Milla, please. You're not welcome here, Noah, I said. Not until you understand this isn't about a house. It's about how you stopped seeing me as your sister and started seeing me as a liability. I didn't. I know exactly what you did, and what you didn't do, and now it's time you understood something too. I let the silence hang for a moment, then said it. I'm not afraid of you anymore. He didn't call again, but Julia did, and this time, she didn't use gold embossed letters. She sent a lawyer. That night, after Noah drove away, I stayed on the porch until the stars came out. No phone in my hand. No one expecting anything from me. Just me, the creak of the swing, and the distant hum of crickets filling the space where obligation used to live. I thought about what he said. I just wanted to keep the peace. Funny how many people confuse peace with control. How often they trade your silence for their comfort. How they call it love when they get everything and you get tolerated. But I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't sad either. I was done. The fight, the proving, the justifying, it was over. The house was mine. The life was mine. And for the first time in years, the story was mine too. I didn't need Noah's apology to mean anything more than what it was, a late arrival. And I didn't need Julia's approval to validate what I'd already earned. The next morning, Reese and I finished the upstairs trim. He cracked a joke about painting the front steps, Julia read, and I laughed, really laughed, until I had to sit down and wipe my eyes. That afternoon, I walked into town, picked up a ceramic house number from the hardware store. New paint, deep navy blue, bold, permanent. When I came home, I nailed it to the post by the gate. The numbers gleamed in the sunlight. 612 Maple Ridge. Not just a house, a home, a beginning. That weekend, I invited a few people over. Not a party, nothing loud, just coffee and crumb cake on the porch. My neighbor Anne brought her sketchbook. Reese played old blues from the upstairs window. We sat there for hours, talking about nothing and everything. No one asked what I did for a living. No one looked at me like I was temporary. They just saw me. And maybe that was the real revenge. Not the house. Not the legal win. Not even cutting them off. It was being seen. No longer the extra chair at someone else's table. No longer the quiet girl in the hallway holding a basket of laundry no one asked for. Now, I plant roses where Grandma's lavender used to grow. I fix what breaks. I rest when I'm tired. I drink tea in the morning without rushing. And sometimes I sit on the porch, just breathing, and I whisper to the wind like a prayer. I made it out. And I made it home. Because family doesn't always mean safety. Sometimes, family means extraction. Sometimes, survival is the boldest kind of love. And sometimes the bravest thing a woman can do is hang her name on the mailbox and say, "This is mine."